so...
and then the documentary part has to do with you and the band and
exactly.
making the music.
And no one's ever done anything like this before. A documentary, as you're watching it, it comes to life, but in the most modern technological terms, it's... Kids will feel like they're watching Star Wars or something, and then at the same time, there's a real story that's happening. So it's going to be really cool. And that's how we premiered the band to the world, was with this trailer for the movie.
Right.
And I don't know if you've seen that or not, but that's kind of the beginning of it.
Is that so? It's going to be about an hour long.
The movie will probably be an hour and a half, and it'll match the record. But there's a lot of dialogue in it too, and there's a live performance in it, and it's constantly changing on itself, and it's. But I'm not one of those guys. I'm extremely artistic, but I'm not one of those guys that likes to go off in his own thing where no one understands it. Like my favorite thing about art is when you can be as artistic as you want, but it's just a little left of center, so the mainstream person who doesn't care about art can understand it. Because that's what you want. Like, I think the greatest idea is to grab somebody that doesn't give a shit about art and then take them on a little journey. Now you got their attention, what are you going to do with it? Rather than being so artistic, you never get their attention, only the cool kids like it. That's not cool to me. They already like art. Like, art is meant to inspire and to get people thinking. You have to absorb the world around you, digest it, and communicate it back in a different way so people can hopefully learn from it, take something from it, or be touched by it, and it can somehow have an impact on their life, positive or negative, whatever it does. but you're not doing that if you're only talking to people that do that on an everyday basis. Like, you got to do it to the people that don't normally give you that kind of time.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking with someone the other day. We were talking about, not to pick on like My Morning Jacket. They're a great band, but for some reason, this friend of mine had this idea of them as like a really specific kind of hipster band, and I was like, well, one, they're really nice guys. Two, it's a really nice record, but he just felt like this isn't music for me. And so it's always unfortunate when you have an artist where people for some reason think, for their own random reason, that band isn't speaking to them, that artist isn't speaking to them. But when are you thinking, do you have a sense of when people might be able to hear more music,
yes.
Actually see the movie?
We are releasing a short film with the first song in the next 14 days. Nice. And the whole thing's shot on 8mm black and white, and it's a sci-fi. It kind of looks like George Lucas THX 1138, where it's all beautiful, naked women and fast cars and concrete and glass architecture. It's really cool looking, mm-hmm. And it's about it's making a new society of people. Is basically the idea of it. There's this scientist. And he creates love and life out of a beautiful woman and picks her up out of the water and creates love for the first time. And it's really cool. And the song that we're doing it to is to a song called "The Adventure," where I had a friend that went through a really tough time, where his marriage was kind of falling apart, and it touched me so deeply that I remember I was up one night at like 1 a.m. I was crying for him. I felt so hurt, because imagine, you're so in love with somebody, but the person doesn't really love you back, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I don't wish that upon anybody, And so the song I wrote called "The Adventure" is the chorus it says, "Hey yo," like a chant. It says, "Hey yo, here I am, and here we go. Life is waiting to begin." And it's this extremely anthemic song, where it just keeps building and building and building, and it just says, I cannot live and I cannot breathe unless you do this with me, And it's, I don't know, it's just, you have to hear it. I played it to Hunter, the bass player of AFI. I love that band. They're fucking amazing. And he was silent for a second. He goes, "That's more than just a song." He's like, "That's not just a song." And he looked at me, he's like, "I don't know what it is, but I feel so inspired by you right now." And I just go, "It's so funny you say that, because that's all I'm trying to do,
That's great. So that's going to be out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, hopefully sooner.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. First song that people get to hear. I'm quite excited about it.
I also want to make sure we talk a little bit about Macbeth, because I think some people have seen this stuff.
I know, it's so funny. That's why we're here. And it's really, and I know, I'm not dumb. I know people want to talk to me about what I'm doing, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, see, we'll talk about shoes, and then we'll get into this bit." I understand it. But the funny thing is, the great thing about Macbeth, and I'll segue even for you into this section, why, So we have this little shoe company and this little clothing company called Atticus Clothing and Macbeth Footwear or whatever. But what we're trying to do with it is something that's never been done before in rock and roll music, because at a time where rock and roll stations are closing, rock and roll CDs aren't being bought, rock and roll labels are going under, we are building a company that's based on rock and roll, where a band can walk through our door and everything is there, from management, business management, multi-million-dollar advertisement buys through our apparel lines and whatever, music distribution, and streaming concerts and advanced ticket sales and pre-orders of the album. All these different things, they can all happen as they walk into our building. And that's what the idea is with our clothing companies, and it wasn't a surprise to a lot of clothing companies when Blink was young. We had to have been the first band that was sponsored by a clothing company, Billabong, the surf company. And everyone would go, what do you guys always wear Billabong for? Well, they kind of sponsor us. And they're like, sponsor you? What band is sponsored by a clothing company? Now it happens everywhere.
So, yeah,
now it's everywhere, but I swear to God, we were the first ones. And then Billabong, the owner of Billabong came over and reabsorbed Billabong in the States, and the owner started Hurley. And so we were wearing Hurley because we were great friends with Bob, and he was our boy, and Hurley blew up like crazy. And that was a big year that Blink blew up. And everyone knew that Blink had a major thing to do with Hurley getting really big that year. And that's when all these companies started sponsoring bands. At that time, we knew that rather than go off and make a bunch of other people money, we should do something that we want to do for ourselves, because that way we'd have control over the look and the feel. But Bob's still one of our best friends in the world. He's awesome. He to this day would do anything for us. He's fucking awesome. He was actually going to be involved with our stuff, but it didn't work out. So we started these clothing companies, and for the reason of we knew that we can help out bands. We knew that we can do more for bands than a lot of their labels did. And the way we started marketing bands and doing things with them, it really worked out that way. Labels started calling us and would ask us to market their bands and do all these things, like things that it would blow your mind. But so the whole thing now is, like I said, we're building a company that when a band walks into our building, they're going to have everything, and they're going to have everything at their disposal, much more than a label would be able to offer them, especially in today's state and age where labels can't really offer hardly anything. Like my manager for a different band he manages called up a label, couldn't even get 5 free CDs. That's like the biggest joke in the world. This was at a time when Blink was rock. I mean, we were on private jets everywhere across the world. Not to give 5 CDs means there's a lot of bad shit going on in the industry. So that's kind of what we're trying to build. And
who are some of the bands that you're working with? And
we have a lot of different bands. We work with bands from like Taking Back Sunday to My Chemical Romance to hardcore bands like Bane and American. We call it, they used to be American Nightmare. I know they just changed their name. We do stuff with. There's like 60. We mostly were in the punk rock kind of emo scene, and we started branching out and doing a lot of cool DJ stuff, DJ Shadow and all these different things. And I think that after this year, when everyone sees what we're doing and how we've really figured out who we are or whatever, I think that you'll start to see this stuff on the likes of really large bands, and because we do a lot of really cool fashionable pieces. Back in the 60s, you had this culture of mods, in England, right around the little Vespas, and which was mods was short for this modern culture absorbing a modern world. They were all about high fashion and coffee shops and anything modern, architecture, whatever. And it was funny, after I learned about that, I was like, well, fuck, that's who I feel like. I always thought the mods were cool, and I was very into the idea of it. As a little punker kid, you always, you look up to your peers or your ancestors, I guess, Mm-hmm. But that's